Welcome to the FCT Semester Calibration Plan. Over the next 18 weeks, this roadmap will guide our work with focused collaboration teams through 6 intentional phases. The goal is simple: help teams get clearer about mastery, stronger at reading student evidence, and more precise in their responses to student needs. This is not about adding more meetings or paperwork. It is about using the FCT time we already have in a more focused, purposeful way so it has a greater impact on instructional decisions. By the end of the semester, we want FCTs to function as responsive teams that adjust instruction as learning happens. This plan is built around 4 design principles. First, capacity building. We are growing expertise from within our teams. This is not a compliance exercise. It is about building shared skills and ownership. Second, mixed readiness. Not every team is starting in the same place, and that is expected. Some teams will need more modeling and structure. Others will be ready for deeper calibration and refinement. Third, leaders will model, calibrate, coach, and monitor. In other words, leaders will demonstrate the work, help teams align expectations, provide support, and look for evidence of implementation. And finally, this work takes place within our current FCT structures. We are not building a separate system. We are strengthening the one we already have. The plan moves through 6 phases: clarity, calibration, classification, response precision, documentation, and sustainability. The order is intentional. Teams need a shared language before they can interpret evidence consistently. They need reliable classification before they can design effective responses. And they need documentation before those practices can be sustained over time. So, each phase builds the next capability. This is not parallel work. It is a sequential capacity building process, with each step preparing teams for the next. By the end of the semester, focused collaboration teams should be able to write measurable mastery targets, use indicator matrices, and classify students as below, on trend, or advanced. Teams should also be able to distinguish differentiation from intervention, document at least one Tier 1 PDSA cycle, and plan extension activities alongside differentiation or interventions. During the development cycles, leaders have a parallel role. They will monitor FCT fidelity, identify each team's readiness level, provide differentiated coaching, and plan for sustainability beyond the rollout. The key signal we are looking for is this: teachers adjust instruction during the unit, not after the unit ends. That is when we know the system is becoming truly responsive. Phase 1 takes place during weeks 1 through 3. This phase focuses on shared mastery language. Before teams can interpret student work, they have to agree on what mastery looks like. That means moving from broad or vague standards to observable, measurable skill statements. For example, instead of saying students understand theme, we would say students justify theme using textual evidence and a written explanation. That small shift makes a big difference. It gives teams a clearer target and a shared language for discussing student learning. During phase 1, leaders define what school-wide mastery language should sound like. They model how to translate standards into skills, share templates, and help departments calibrate expectations. In the live session, teams participate in a rewriting lab. They take a real standard and turn it into a measurable mastery statement with leadership feedback in the moment. In the virtual session, teachers revise sample objectives together and explain their thinking through comments. Each FCT will submit 3 priority mastery targets written in observable, skill-level language. By the end of this phase, at least 80% of FCT agendas should anchor discussion in mastery statements, not activities, and not just standard numbers. Phase 2 runs during weeks 4 through 6. Here, the focus shifts to interpreting student evidence. The big move is from score-based thinking to indicator-based thinking. Instead of asking only, what percentage did students earn, teams begin asking, what does the evidence show students understand, and where is their thinking breaking down? Teams use 4 lenses: concept accuracy, strategy selection, explanation clarity, and transferability. These lenses help teachers see more than a score. They help teams understand how students are thinking and what kind of support they may need next. In phase two, leaders introduce the indicator matrix and model how to classify student work. In the live session, teams sort anonymized student samples as below, on trend, or advanced. Then they compare their decisions and discuss the evidence behind each placement. In the virtual session, teams classify the same samples in breakout groups and use polling to surface differences in interpretation. Those differences are useful. They show us exactly where calibration is needed. Each FCT will build an indicator matrix tracker that connects priority standards to mastery indicators and student placements. The benchmark is that at least 70% of teams reference indicator evidence during placement conversations. Phase 3 takes place during weeks 7 through 9. The focus here is placement reliability. Students should not be classified based on one score or one assignment. Teams should look at patterns of evidence over time work samples, exit tickets, formative checks, and other evidence collected during instruction. The goal is consistency across classrooms. A student classified as below in one classroom should receive the same classification in another classroom when the evidence is similar. When disagreements happen, teams return to the indicators. They do not rely on opinion or preference. By the end of this phase, at least 75% of placement disagreements should be resolved using indicator evidence. Phase 4 happens during weeks 10 through 12. This phase helps teams match the right response to the right barrier. A key distinction here is the difference between differentiation and intervention. Differentiation addresses anticipated difficulty. These are supports we build into initial instruction because we expect some students may need them. Intervention addresses persistent misconceptions. These are targeted responses for students who did not respond to initial instruction. That distinction matters. Not every student struggle requires the same response. Our goal is to move from general support to precise instructional action. In phase 4, teams use 5 barrier categories. Those categories are strategy mismatch, representation confusion, vocabulary precision gap, multi-step reasoning breakdown, and transfer failure. This language helps teams name the reasons students are struggling. And once the barrier is clearer, the response can be more precise. In the live session, teachers sort scenarios as differentiation or intervention. In the virtual session, they classify student scenarios digitally and explain their reasoning. Each FCT will use a barrier to response alignment chart to record their findings. By the end of this phase, at least 60% of FCT conversations should use barrier-based language rather than general phrases like "we will reteach." Phase 5 runs during weeks 13 through 15. This phase focuses on documenting Tier 1 PDSA cycles. PDSA stands for Plan, Do, Study, Act. In the plan stage, teams identify the barrier. In the do stage, they apply a scaffold or instructional response. In the study stage, they look at whether the evidence has changed, and in the act stage, they decide what to continue, adjust, or try next. For example, a team might identify a vocabulary gap, use sentence stems, review improvements to exit tickets, and then decide whether to keep or refine that scaffold. This process makes instructional improvement visible, repeatable, and easier to coach. During phase 5, leaders introduce short cycle monitoring tools and model how to log an intervention cycle. In a live session, teachers write a complete PDSA entry using sample student data with feedback from leadership. In the virtual session, teams complete a simulated PDSA entry on a shared template. Each FCT will document one Tier 1 PDSA cycle connected to a priority standard. The benchmark is that at least 50% of teams complete one intervention cycle entry. That first documented cycle is important. It marks the shift from talking about instructional response to tracking what was tried, what happened, and what comes next. Phase 6 takes place during weeks 16 through 18. This final phase focuses on extension and sustainability. For advanced learners, the goal is depth, not speed. Extension should not mean more of the same work, and it should not simply mean moving students ahead faster. Instead, Strong extension tasks increase cognitive demand. Students might transfer skills to a new context, justify their reasoning more deeply, compare strategies, or move across representations such as models, graphs, equations, and language. So the shift is this: not solve extra problems, but compare multiple strategies and justify which one is most efficient. That is the kind of extension that builds deeper learning. During Phase 6, leaders model how to redesign extension tasks. They also facilitate vertical conversations and make extension planning a regular FCT agenda item. In the live session, teams take existing early finisher work and redesign it into stronger transfer tasks. In the virtual session, teams post the original and redesigned tasks side by side. Peers then give feedback on whether the task truly increases depth and stays aligned to the priority standard. Each FCT will produce one extension task aligned to a priority standard. The benchmark is that at least 60% of FCT agendas include extension planning alongside intervention planning. This slide gives us the semester benchmarks at a glance. In Phase 1, 80% of agendas should anchor on skill level mastery statements. In Phase 2, 70% of teams should reference indicator evidence. In Phase 3, 75% of placement disagreements should be resolved through evidence. In Phase 4, 60% of conversations should use barrier-based response language. In Phase 5, 50% of teams should complete one intervention or PDSA cycle. And in Phase 6, 60% of agendas should include extension alongside intervention. Together, these benchmarks help us see whether the work is becoming part of regular team practice. The Leadership Monitoring Dashboard reviews 6 domains each month. And importantly, this is a coaching tool, not a compliance checklist. Leaders review FCT agendas for mastery targets, trackers for indicator matrix use, trend charts for placement, consistency, meeting notes for barrier identification, intervention logs for PDSA cycles, and lesson plans for extension tasks. All of this evidence comes from existing sources. So the purpose is not to add documentation. The purpose is to use current artifacts to guide coaching, monitor progress, and strengthen implementation over time. Leadership support should match team readiness. Beginning teams need more structure. They benefit from templates, examples, co-facilitation, and modeling. Coaching focuses on standard unpacking, evidence interpretation, and basic trend placement. Progressing teams are ready for deeper work. They need support with barrier identification, differentiation versus intervention, and Tier 1 scaffold selection. Advanced teams need coaching on extension design, vertical articulation, mastery thresholds, and cross-grade alignment. The goal is to meet each team where it is, then gradually release responsibility as capacity grows. By week 18, we want to see 6 clear indicators of success. Mastery language appears consistently in FCT agendas. Indicator matrices are used across the school. Placement logic is consistent across classrooms. Barrier language replaces generic reteach language. PDSA entries begin to emerge across teams, and extension planning becomes routine. Together, these indicators show that FCT work is becoming a coherent school-wide system, not a set of isolated practices. The most important signal is that teachers adjust instruction during the unit, not after the unit ends. That means FCT conversations lead to real-time instructional decisions. Teams identify barriers mid-unit. They select targeted scaffolds. They monitor evidence. And they adjust before students fall further behind. This is the shift from asking, "What happened?" to asking, "What do we do next?" To sustain the work, dashboard reviews continue monthly. Teams self-assess. Artifacts are updated every unit, and each semester becomes an opportunity to refine and deepen implementation. The resources listed here connect to the major ideas in this plan. They address shared mastery language, formative assessment evidence, barrier analysis, differentiation, PDSA cycles, extension planning, and placement reliability. These readings can support leadership teams, instructional coaches, and teacher leaders who want to explore the research base more deeply. The key takeaway is that this plan reflects established principles of collaborative inquiry, evidence based instruction, and continuous improvement. Thank you for your commitment to this work and for the leadership you provide in your schools. This plan depends on clarity, consistency, collaboration, and trust. Your role is essential in helping FCTs move from conversation to action and from action to impact. We appreciate your partnership, your professionalism, and your continued focus on student success.